Apologies, the recording is not starting. Give me a... Okay.
It says recording in progress.
Yeah, now it's working. Sorry, Johnny, what did it tell you?
No, I said it shows that recording is in progress.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another learning session from ICF Bangalore Charter Chapter. For those who have come in for the first time today, the Bangalore chapter of ICF leads learning sessions for all of us as coaches and as individuals on Mondays between 6:30 and 7:30. We usually have them on alternative weeks, the Monday and the first and the third Monday of every month. However, Jan, Feb, and March, we have a very interesting initiative called Spotlight, which comes from the fact that we have several esteemed colleagues amongst our ICF chapter members itself who are stalwarts in their individual fields. And as members, I think we would love to benefit from their wisdom and learning. So Jan, Feb, and March, we are showcasing the various stalwarts from our own chapter. And we've had 2 sessions so far. And today, I'm going to introduce Chitra, Ravi soon. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jayashree Briganza. I lead learning at ICF Bangalore chapter. So if you have issues a few days down the line on your CCUs, on an issue with the recording or any of those, then, well, you can get in touch with me. So that's about ICF. And for today, it's an absolute pleasure for me to introduce Chitra. Chitra, I've known you for, I think, close to 18 plus years now, and in various avatars, as a friend, as a fellow traveler on the TA journey, and then I've kind of seen and admired Chitra's work in this field of TA, Transactional Analysis, as today she is one of the very respected and senior trainers in the country. She also heads ITAA, which is International Transactional Analysis Association based at Auckland, USA. She's the president of ITAA right now. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you today, Chitra. And as much as I am a student of TA, the topic that you have chosen is, I think, very, very relevant for all of us as coaches too. And I would say even as parents, as you know, the several other roles and hats that we wear in our lives. A bit about Chitra. Chitra founded and runs Seed TLC. I've been very curious, Chitra. Does TLC stand for Tender Loving Care?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you for 18 years. Now I did.
And Therapy Learning Coaching.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful acronym. I didn't know that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Chitra is a leadership coach. She is a TA trainer, supervisor, practitioner. She brings with her extensive experience as head of HRs across various roles, across consulting experience as, you know, in various sectors, including IT and retail. Today, I will let her journey in TA, you know, kind of showcase her. So without much ado, over to you, Chitra.
Thank you so much, Jayashree, for the warm welcome. And I'm really, really looking forward to taking all of us, including me, through this small little journey into the perspective of, through the TA perspective of culture. And I want to say a little bit about transactional analysis, and I think it's so important to introduce it. I'm not sure how many of you have attended any workshops on TA or have done the TA 101, which is a basic course in TA, as well as some of the advanced training. Just to say a little bit more about my background, I think I entered TA just from a perspective of learning, taking back some work towards my training and coaching many years back. But then what I experienced just in the basic course was so impactful for me. Such simple concepts and models to represent such complex constructs of personality and human behavior. And what I'm happy to take you all through today is how simple it is for us to understand some elements of personality and some aspects of our behaviors just in a few simple models. And I'm going to share with you two of those models today. And I'm not sure how many of you have attended any one-on-ones or any concepts of TA, but today I'm going to share screen. And I also, okay, let me just share screen and then say a little bit more. Is it visible to everyone clearly? Yeah. So I'm just going to say that, often even in my one-on-ones as well as in my work, I really believe that it's so easy for us to first start with self and really just take whatever is being explored with over here and apply it to ourselves. And then we look at what are the possibilities in coaching and in our work. Yeah. And I'm just going to open out a small little bit and then get into breakout rooms for a little bit of exploration, get you all back and then open out the aspects on culture. So the scope for today's 1 hour session will really be the influences on personality using the ego state model. This is the very first model that Byrne put together in his work. And it's such a simple model to already start exploring with small elements of personality. We look at early influences for personality to form in most psychology models as well as even in TA. And that's what we will get right into in the next slide. Following up on that, I will go into the cultural influences using the cultural parent. And finally, we look at how this is useful both personally as well as in the space of coaching. Absolutely. Yeah. So we begin with an exercise straight away. So I hope you'll have some kind of a notebook or a paper around you. And even if you don't, just make a mental note of and think back over the past few days or weeks and make a note of any time, a recent time when you behaved like your mom did or like your father did. Any time in your past few days or past few, hopefully days and not weeks, and you say, hey God, this is just like my mom or just like my dad. And just make a note of that. And I'm saying like your mom did or dad did, especially when you were much younger. If it's before the age of 15 or 10, that'll be lovely. If you can remember anything that you did in the past few weeks that resembled your mom or your dad. What was that behavior? And how do you feel when you had this, when you were doing whatever you were doing? That right now, when you think back and say, hey, this was like my mom, or this was like my dad, what was that feeling that emerged for you? And if you've got some access to it, I'm going to ask Jayashree to move you all into breakout rooms. And just before you go, I'm going to have a few contracts with you to share this one experience or this one behavior that you've got contact with two others who will be in the breakout rooms. It's important, of course, to take care of yourself and to see as to what you'd like to share. And of course, when we look at sharing any personal experience, we look at protecting the identity of whoever's sharing. And they bring in what they're sharing or what they want to say as a learning once we come back from the breakout rooms. And yeah, I think since we're recording, I think just to again take care of yourself and see as to what is it that you want to put out in the plenary. Yeah, Jayshree? May I request that you start the breakout rooms?
Sure, we are ready.
Thank you.
Hi, Bhavani. Did you get thrown out of a breakout room?
Hi, Chitra. So the person I was part of said he had something else, so I had to come back.
So would anyone like to put on chat as to what is it that came alive as a learning or anything that came alive for you when you did share in your breakout rooms? Or any questions or thoughts? Yes, Suma, I'm reading that. Yeah, that's so interesting. No, knowing or unknowingly, we tend to do what we experienced in our childhood. Yeah. Yeah, unconsciously and consciously we get groomed totally. Lovely, Lenny. We definitely carry a part of our parents in us. Yeah. My God, it's running so fast. I can't read, Jayshree. You must be really good at it. Yeah. Jill, you're on. Jill, over here, I can see you, Are you going to say something? Because you look a little highlighted over here.
No, it's just interesting to listen to those in the group, whether or not they picked what we perceive as supportive or positive experiences versus neutral or maybe perceived as negative. So it was interesting to see that dynamic. We shared a little bit in the group and recognized that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And whether you like it or not, and it's not often conscious, it's so unconscious. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anything that you see, Jayashree, that you want to pick up and make a note of, please help me in that. Because it's running really fast for me to actually see all of it.
Yeah, I think what stood out for me is one of the things that Lalana said, which is, of course, she's echoing that there are a lot of things that we're taking in from our parents, but also the fact that there is mixed feelings about what we are taking in. So that stood out for me from all the comments.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is just one aspect of personality, what all we keep absorbing and so actually almost swallowing some of the aspects as little folks. When we are really, really young, in our childhood, there are so many small little behaviors, small little feelings of our parents that we keep interjecting. Johnny, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had an observation. I just realized that I'm the living father of mine. I mean, he left his bodily form in 2015, but in this breakout, I realized that he is living through me.
Yeah. And how do you feel about that? If I may ask.
I do have mixed feelings. One is I feel good that he's still alive through me.
Yeah.
And I was telling we had three people, but one person was not there. So Mudit and I, we were talking, and I was thinking that, when I was a child, that I'm going to bridge this so-called generation gap. And even though I'm known as my daughter's cool dad amongst her friends, I still realize that there is a big gap, and that gap is forever going to be there.
Absolutely. And I'm going to invite you to just hold on to that thought, because we'll see as to how deep this runs, especially when we're looking at even culture. And maybe there is some hope and some possibilities as we move further. So on that note, and on your beautiful sharing, I'm just going to take this ahead into the next part. Is that all right with everyone? Yeah. So what we have over here is like what most of you talked about. Oh gosh. We have personality which is almost divided into these three parts according to Eric Berne. And in this tripartite model, we do have the parent, the adult, and the child. And this is like almost like the contents, it's the structure of the personality. Like how you have, in a fan, you have what manifests and what manifests as air. And you have the motor and all the, other parts inside of a fan. You have this as what we all have as structures. And Berne has beautifully divided into these three parts. The first one is the parent. What you spoke about just now, all the feelings, all the attitudes, the values, the prejudices, all those things that a father or mother said to us, and even other parent figures, perhaps grandparents and aunts who lived with us, all those behaviors over and over again are actually taken in by the little child. And this is a process that we look at as introjection. We actually swallow these behaviors over and over again, along with feelings, along with attitudes. I was born, for instance, in a Brahmin family, in an Iyer family. There were so many feelings, attitudes, values about religion, about God, about, we used to call it muddy, and how you have to keep certain things in certain ways. A lot of prejudices also, which perhaps some of which internally I did not accept. Some of it I accepted. So both conscious and unconscious ways in which we take in personality from each parent. And two different, very, very different types of parents. So my dad was this particular strict achievement-oriented person. My mom was this sweet, generous, warm, typical, Indian woman who would cook a lot, who would make fabulous meals. So you can see how they were so different from each other, and all of those behaviors are a part of my personality. And all the feelings and attitudes that I had towards all that upbringing and my early life experiences form this part of the ego state model. So the child, the ego state. So it's like as if in my brain that I've got these compartments that are formed very early in life, and Byrne beautifully categorized them. I have also access to a lot of here and now thinking, like how would I, for instance, I started getting this cold and cough, Jayashree, on, as late as Friday, and I was wondering if it's COVID and all these things as to what are my options? What can I do about it? There's a part of me that was getting really worried and scared. And I was running back to my old coping mechanisms of being that little girl who used to worry about those things. And there's a part of me which said, my work ethic, how can I not do this webinar, which I've committed to, which I've got from my father? And there was a here and now option saying that, what can I do if it is going to collapse my throat? And therefore, you can see how we move between, there is something called psychic energy, and we move between these three ego states, literally on a moment-to-moment basis. And now what we know is that we have some access to how did we get some aspects of our parent into this part of the model. Are you all with me so far? Yeah. And as we go further, what we look at is now we take it, and this is what it is. I'm going to give you all one example of what we're looking for. In psychology, we look for consistent patterns. So in every ego state, we have consistent patterns of the same feelings and the same experiences over and over again. And that forms a consistent pattern of behavior. So for example, like many of you have done some work in the IT corridor for a particular couple of companies. And sometimes when I used to go driving there, when there was no COVID, of course, and I would hit traffic, which is very common in Bangalore, I would go into, and I would have this car swerving towards me, and I would, have in my mind, drivers like this should not be allowed on the road. And we all know my father used to have this whole attitude towards bad driving, which most fathers have. I'm sure even Johnny has that. Yeah. And I remember that, when I would start getting a little late when, the traffic would pile up, and I have this thing of punctuality, I would have the sinking feeling in my stomach. And then I would move to another ego state. And then I would quickly say, listen, I can just call up the person, the admin person who would coordinate my coaching sessions, and I can stagger all the sessions a bit, and quickly I could move into the adult. So it's like as if one person was moving between one ego state and the other so easily. Moment to moment, we move between these ego states. And my focus is going to be more on the parent ego state, because I'm going to straight move into the cultural parent model. And I will take your questions a little later. Just an introduction into the culture. Byrne developed the concept of group culture, and he based this on the model of individual personality. So we're going to focus on that parent ego state and take it straight into the culture. And this is in tune with many, many anthropological views of culture. So we're going to straight away look at this particular model. But before that, I just want to share with you how unconsciously many of us carry many aspects of culture in several things that we partake in. And therefore, the cultural parent that we're going to look at, it contains a whole lot of conscious as well as unconscious boundaries of acceptable behavior, whether it is harmful or not to us. And this is the unfortunate part. We don't even know what's happening with culture, which can be so harmful for us. And this is formed so early in the family and early socio-cultural environment. And the more tight the parenting process, and you made some reference to it about how you're the cool dad, Johnny, the more tight the parenting process, we experience limited options early in life. And as adults, we relive this program of being oppressed or oppressing others, unfortunately. And therefore, when we look at this model, this whole work that we're going to do in the next slide gives us perhaps some options and supports the reversal of old structures that have got created. So we have the same parent, adult, child model over here. And now I'm going to invite you all to take what is one significant belief from your family that is typical of your community or your culture that you've never agreed with and you continue to do or you do not follow today. Any one significant belief, I'm inviting you to go and think back and see that is typical of your community or culture that you never agreed with, that you continue to follow today or you don't. I'm going to stop share for a few minutes and invite you to make a note of it. Okay.
Do you want us to put it on chat, Chitra, or just make a note?
I'm going to see if I can invite you all to go back into breakout rooms. And there are three parts to what I'm going to invite you to share. One is, what is that belief? Yeah. The second part is, how is it actioned out, that belief? If you're following it, how is it actioned out, whether you follow it or not? And the third part of it is, what are the feelings associated with that belief? Because in most psychology frameworks, we have a lot of work that we do with feelings. Yeah. And just to name the feeling, not to feel the feelings right now, because you need to take care of yourself. And really to see what is it that you feel with that particular belief or that particular behavior that you have. And again, we will have another 10 minutes of breakout rooms, whether it's the same or different. I'm okay with either. And yeah, thank you, Jayashree. Sorry. Is it okay for me to spill over a little beyond 7:30? We'll ask for permission. Yeah, okay. No, I think you're on mute now. Are you?
Yeah, just let me pause the recording.
Character is the culturally inherited ways in which we experience pleasure, pain, resistance, obedience, identity, hope, all the various range of feelings in living up to these beliefs. I'm going to give you all one example of one such cultural belief, which is quite outdated, which is the dowry system. So the dowry system has a whole lot of this belief that, what do you think are the beliefs? You know, I love to interact, but for want of time, I'm just going to go ahead. So the beliefs around, the woman or the bride's family has to give so much of money or so much of jewelry or so much of whatever to the groom's family. And that's the belief, because we are taking the bride to our homes. And then what is the technicality? oh, now we are doing this, you can give it in the form of, and all these ways and means that we actually go ahead and partake with our monies to the groom's family. So the culturally inherited techniques of doing this. And finally, there are a whole range of feelings associated with this giving and receiving of all of these monies. There's a lot of feelings of, pain and, this whole thing of having to borrow so much and that hopelessness and that frustration and all of that. And of course, on the groom's side, there is also an imbalance of power. I feel powerful, I feel greater than, I feel more okay than, and all of that. So there are a range of feelings. And this model provides us with any belief. You can now trace it back to what's that belief that holds us captive? What is the methodology by which it is carried out? And what are the whole range of feelings that all parties or both parties feel towards that particular ideology or that belief? And I'm going back to what you mentioned, Johnny. I'm also a mother and I have a child, and I have not child. She's now 19 years old and she would not want me to call her a child. And then she talks about, one sentence that she cannot stand is, when I was young. And she said, oh, there you go. So we've stopped saying those. And I'm supposed to be the cool parent. Yeah. So I'm just saying there are a whole lot of things that we can talk about. And this is the model. And my last slide before I stop sharing will be really to see as to what are those beliefs that you hold from your culture. Yeah. That perhaps in some ways limits you or limits another. And some which really supports us and we still honor. And if you look at that, I think we also acknowledge and honor some of the beliefs that we so beautifully carry and continue to carry those traditions, hoping that they will continue with us. Yeah, a lot of them come to my mind, but I'm going to hold my breath before I can bring it back to you all. And of course, how can this be useful for us personally as well as in coaching? And what are those beliefs that we hold as coaches? That's also fantastic to explore with, our culture of coaches. What all are the range of ideologies and beliefs that we hold? Yeah. And with that, I would say thank you. And I'm going to stop sharing so that we can have questions. And Jayashree, I hope I've kept time.
Absolutely, Chitra. And I think these questions are really beautiful and pertinent. So I was wondering if you would want to have, some reflection on these questions in the main plenary right now. Maybe if you can extend it by 5 minutes. And then we'll close the session formally and leave it open for informal questions and discussions for another 10-15 minutes after that. Would that work?
I'm totally here. I'm enjoying this. Thank you. As long as you help me with the chat. So chat, or even if you want to open your mics out and, unmute yourself and ask questions, I'm absolutely okay with it. Lalana's raised her hand. Lalana.
Yes. Hi, Chitra. Thank you. Thanks for this amazing session. Really made me ponder. I think, Chitra, my question is, there are some cultural beliefs that I'm aware of. There are so many that I'm not aware of. And I worry about how they might be playing out in my coaching. Of course, sometimes I get aware of some of them as I go through the coaching, but I guess my question is there anything I can, any sort of rumination one can do to become more aware of some of these unconscious beliefs?
I think, one way that I can personally tell you how I track, if I were to say I should, and I have to, and one needs to, it gives me indication that there is something rigidified that's going on in my mind. And I stop myself and I say, then, do I want to really think about how come I'm saying I should and I must and I have to? Yeah,
That's
one-
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, thanks. And I think to add to that, I find myself thinking he should or they should, especially in a coaching context. And that's what I also need to. So thanks for bringing that awareness back. Yeah, it should not even be somebody else should. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's also so important, because the moment we say he should or she should, there's some concretizing that's happening in our and in our work. Anything concrete, really, that can
Helps,
be seep into the session. Thank you. Well,
thanks, Chitra.
interesting. Uma.
Hi, Chitra.
Hi.
Thanks for the session, really wonderful. I'm sorry I'm not video ready, so I'm not turning on my video. So this is very interesting things that you put as an individual, what beliefs you hold from your culture. For me, it has been like, not thinking ahead and, landing in trouble. I have that, I've observed so many things growing up, living in the present and not having so much thought for the future, and all with thing, good things will come to your aid, whatever good karma will come to all that I've been hearing. But then for me, the value system has changed and I've become like more the proactive, always looking for a solutioning, operating from a solutioning mode. That has been the impact on me, having experienced that in my years of growing up. Now, what happens when I get into coaching? Coaching is supposed to be not, operating in the solutioning mode. So I have to take extra care to, pause that solutioning, natural solutioning model that comes to me and allow people to, explore and hold that space for them. Very consciously, I prepare myself and I engage in a coaching arrangement so I don't come up with that. But naturally, I've become that, if some problem comes, I really think 2-3 steps ahead, more options, so that's been the impact. And having understood that and my area of work, I'm learning slowly how to balance it out such that that does not, impact. So.
And it seems to be some kind of an influence on you, a powerful influence from someone, perhaps.
And I did live script work, okay. And one powerful thing that stayed with me is you're not the choice now. You have the choice to choose differently. So I use that very powerfully and not feel that helplessness that I was in some place at some point in time.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
I think I was reflecting on your question, Chitra, about how does it influence my coaching. And I remember early in a mentor session in my coaching journey, I have a very strong bias about people who, let's say, chain smoke. And again, this is cultural. I had older cousins who would smoke in private. So it was always about, so it was always about a sense of immorality associated with smoking. So it wasn't just a habit which might be detrimental to your physical health. So there was a lot of unlearning and awareness that I had to do as a coach, because I could be working with clients who do smoke, and it is a choice that they've made on their lifestyle. And I need to respect the choice, irrespective of what my personal views on that. So I think if I sit and dive back, and I'm, someone else had said in their chat that if I dive back, there are so many elements of, cultural parent that I might not even be aware about that seeps into me as a person and into me as a coach. It would be very interesting to just reflect on how does it influence my coaching journey, I guess. Take it back.
Absolutely. And if I may say, even at a personal level, and I'm going back to, and I'm so drawn towards parenting in this also. Like I remember once when we were sitting together, my daughter, my husband and I for lunch, and she said, and she's going off to University to Pune. So she said, what if I smoke over there? And I said, that's one thing, don't do it. So she turned around and said, Ma, you want me to tell you or not tell you? And I said, you're really smart. And so it's just that, So I said, you need to do what you need to do, and I'd rather you just tell me.
And that's a difficult that's a difficult thing to accept and articulate, right? Even as a parent's role, that I may not agree, but at least I would still love to be part of those parts of your life that I don't agree with.
Absolutely. And does that also apply to coaching is what I'm wondering.
Absolutely, I think so.
Yeah, I'd rather we talk about it than not. Yeah.
So what I would propose is that, let's, if you can close the session formally for now. And then, Chitra, if you do have a few minutes more, I would leave it open for those who want to unmute themselves and connect with you, chat, have any questions to ask. Would that be all right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, Chitra, I absolutely loved today's session, and but I'm going to, pass the honor to Johnny, who's very happily agreed to support me to share his reflections for today and bring the session to a formal close. So over to you, Johnny.
So thank you, Jayashree. Frankly, when I saw the title, I was not very clued on to what I'm into. So I'm always very adventurous to come into the unknown space, and that's how I came in. And let me tell you, I don't know about the reflections about the session, but let me tell you what happened to me. I think it was very enlivening and awakening, to say the least, as my thing. And I'm going back with a live father within me, who I thought I said goodbye to in 2015. And what I noticed very different today, Chitra, is that, on the top of the hour, what I've seen in the last few months or couple of years of ICF, being in ICF, is that when the time turns at the top of the hour, suddenly you see a drop in the number of participants, which I didn't notice today. I mean, that is saying something about what they are getting and what they want and what they have gotten from today. So I think that says it all, Chitra, for what you have been an instrument to be evocative in the session. It's not a session as a session, but it evoked a lot in, I'm sure if it has, for me, I'm sure it has. So on behalf of the chapter and on behalf of all the members who are here from different chapters and from different parts of the world, I would like to express my deep sense of gratitude for being here and sharing this with us. Thank you, Chitra.
Thank you so much, Johnny. And it was a pleasure. I really loved the opportunity of just having spent this 1 hour with some little bit of TA with you all, which is my passion. Thank you so much, Johnny. And I continue to remain here like what you asked, Jayashree.
Thank you, Chitra. I'm going to take a quick moment to remind people our next session is on February 7th. And we are going to talk about unpacking neurodiversity for an inclusive world. And Amita Bharat is going to lead the session for us. The link is already in chat. Apologies for cascading something in another room. The link is already in chat and I'm going to repost the link. So look forward to seeing you all there. And now over to you all and over to you, Chitra.
I'm here. If there are any further questions?
So Chitra, there's a saying that goes, culture can have strategy for breakfast every day. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when you look at the corporate world and the global context of it,
Oh, yeah.
In your experience with creating, certain culture for organizations, what has worked? What are some indications or what are some ways that one can work with that piece?
Especially when you're looking at organizations which has multiple structures, especially when they're located in many locations. I hope I've got your question correctly. And
Yes.
I really look at how is it that, I think one of the key things, and it's such a cliched statement, inclusion and diversity. So how can we be inclusive of all the diversity across different global requirements. And I think even these matrix organizations, which really look at how there's a weaving of, flattening, as well as in some forms, seeing as to how communication can happen, meetings can happen, things can happen to mitigate cultural differences and difficulties. I think that's what I think I've seen in many massive conglomerates and corporations. I can say even from my own organizational role with the ITA as president, I often encounter many people across different countries. I would say all races, all colors, all everything. And being brown, I'm calling myself brown, is so, it's hugely accepted today because of the kind of the way in which we accept and the okayness of others. I think the emphasis needs to be there of inclusion. I love the word belonging is long to be a part of. So I think that is so important. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, do you see a lot of organizations being more and more aware of the context of inclusion and diversity and actually taking it seriously? Are you seeing that?
I think it's named in some organizations, whereas actually when you meet some of the mid-level coaching engagements, you may not see it enough. However, when you work with the Apex team, often I think that needs to be explored. And I think, and explored it, and also this is one of the key things that we look out for, especially in today's context.
Right. Right. Thanks for sharing. I just thought it would be nice for all of us to hear some part of that piece.
Yeah, thank you, Anu. Okay, there are lots of you, Bhaktiyar, Shankar, Celeste, Sandeep, whoever.
Bhaktiyar had his hand first. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Chitra, generally, I think we, during our coaching, are generally aware what our attitudes and thoughts and feelings are. But thank you very much for bringing it into sharper focus today. And this is, I think we need to pay more attention to our own attitudes, our own thinking and beliefs and so on. So I'm sure this is going to help us. I had another comment about the generational gap. We referred to that earlier on.
Yeah.
When children go into teenage and above, they become adults, I sometimes feel that there is a role reversal. They start acting as parents, and they are a bit harsh as parents, and they very easily will say, you shouldn't do this, you should do this, you must do this, you must not do this, and all that. I don't know how to express this in your terminology.
Yeah, I so agree with you. And I think, I always look at adolescence as that particular phase in life where there's a rite of passage of really coming to, from being parents, children, they start moving towards almost finding their own way. And I think there's literally a flip that happens from being nice and obedient and sweet. And I know my own daughter at 13, it almost gave her a right now to be, I would say, awful. And I would like tear my hair out despite all my background in psychology. And somehow at the age of 18, again, that flip happened where she started seeing that she's coming back to us almost. But yeah, there are times that she could also be quite abrupt. And we would have conversations quite a lot. And there have been dismissive conversations with me, and I've said, sorry, that won't work. And yeah, it's back and forth. So I agree with you. And I also see that there is a guard or a threat that parents sometimes carry with them about children. How do I now confront them? And I think sometimes to just cross that and say that, listen, I am still your mom or dad. And allow me to give you the respect that you deserve. I mean, I somehow think that it's uniquely different for each parent, but I think the language needs to be put back into that place.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, Chitra. My daughter is 28, and I so resonate with Bhaktiyar that, wonder whether she's our parent or whether we are her parents. And there are moments when I have a conversation, very, very normal conversation, and I very gently say that I'm not talking to you as your friend. I am now speaking to you as your father.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, everything else falls in place after that. Thanks, Bhaktiyar.
It was a lovely question. Thank you.
If I can take a quick 30 seconds, I know there are people waiting in the queue to add to what Bhaktiyar and Johnny said. I think that I find there's sometimes a positive part of when my 15-year-old plays the role of my parent. He would sit me down and say, Mama, you've been working really hard. You deserve to take a break. I'm like, yes, I need that nurturing sometimes, and I'm glad you're taking that role. And of course, I also seen the other side that Chitra and Bhaktiyar and Johnny have spoken about. But occasionally, it's a beautiful part when children are able to play the nurturing part of the parent to us too. So I think.
Oh, absolutely, Jayashree. I so agree with you.
Thank you,
so many
for pointing that out, because that happens often. So thankfully, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So Johnny, you decide as to who's going next.
It's Shankar who's next.
Thank you, Chitra. I mean, I actually had to overcome my cultural parent to press the raise hand, which I wanted to do for a long time. And my question really is, Chitra, I've done my TA 101 some time back. After that, I haven't really caught up on TA. And I'm wondering if on the journey of becoming a coach, how much of TA do I really need to do without, I know TA you can do a lifetime, right? You probably know better than me. So what is the amount of TA which is sufficient for a coach, right? That's the kind of question I have in mind.
Yeah, I would love to tell you to go all the way. But yeah, I always tell people who really seek to do advanced TA training, just go as far as your heart is calling for you to go. And for me, when I joined the TA journey some time back, some 2 decades back, I was sold. So I have sold on to the whole bunch of concepts, because the depth of understanding myself first was so valuable that, yeah, I continue to be sold on that journey. And I think it allows you to actually explore a lot with process also, process work, which is beautiful. So that's it, Shankar.
I would say +1 to that from my experience too, Shankar. For me, I think the value that my TA training has done to my coaching practice itself, of course, but me as a person who is turning up there, in that coaching space, not to talk about me as a parent, me as a spouse, friend, daughter, and all the other roles that I play. It impacted me as a person as a whole. So what part of it, what translates into is in my coaching practice. And I thought the first year was very evocative and useful for me as a coaching practice. But of course, I was hooked to TA, so I continued for 3 more years. And you might find yourself hooked too, possibly. I'm a strong, very biased advocate. So yeah, so it's coming from a very strong bias. Yes.
So we can take the question from Celeste next.
Hi, thanks so much. And just resonating with everybody who's done the TA 101, I think this was such a beautiful journey for me, that time that I spent with Chitra. And I must tell you, Chitra, that therapy session that I had with you, it has stayed with me till now, and every day on a daily basis, those things I remind myself what I learned about myself during that time. So it was a great experience. My question is, again, continuing with what Lenny had mentioned. So in organizations, and specifically international organizations, like I worked with a very big international organization, and culture is something which really determines all the strategies and the actions that take place at the organization, and from the bottom to the top level. And there is a lot of emphasis on creating a certain kind of culture, or changing the culture of the organization. But more often than not, when you actually start working with these people, you realize that it is really catching up with the trend more than actually making the change. So when you now that I'm working as an independent consultant, I have more options of choosing my work instead of just following the trend in an organization. I would like to understand, what are those triggers that really tell you that they are up for a change? Because if they are not, then you should really walk out of that space and not take that assignment, because you know for sure that this is really catching up with the trend rather than really doing any work out there.
Lovely question, Celeste. I think that, how I look at it is that I think right from the word go, we look at contracting in TA. And what is it that the organization seeks, and what is it that I can offer? And also part of the contract is that, there's a periodic review of what we're doing and how we're doing it, and where is it that we're being consistent with what we're doing. I think we keep going back to the drawing board, and if they're not on board, then I just bring it back to them. I'm not looking at leaving that assignment. I'm more looking at how can we go back and see what's not happening, what's going on. And often I look at how can I involve somebody at the top, or somebody who have key stakeholders. And I think that really works well.
Yeah, because
and then
because in the sorry,
and if they're changing what they've agreed for, how come they're changing it? Because sometimes contexts change, especially in pandemic time. I think times lots of lots of financial and commercial and economic crisis in many organizations. Therefore, for us to also see how can we make it a little more realistic. And I love the whole thing of I'm okay or okay, in the sense of okayness that TA talks about. And my work, I also bring in that element of how can we still make it an okay situation for, as many folks involved as possible. Yeah.
And again, I feel that your belief system, again, kind of balancing that is also very important, because what you believe may not be the current belief of the organization. So being okay with that is also another important. Thanks so much, Chitra. Thanks.
We have the Sandeep who has raised his hand.
Thank you, Johnny. Chitra, my question is again, of course, related to culture. See, I'm pursuing my SCC right now and doing pro bono and peer coaching. In the meanwhile, I have connected with one lady, coach in Europe, and I'm in constant touch, messaging, and we are working together on that. She is pursuing her PCC and currently doing coaching for clients from Europe, America, African countries, Middle East as well. Now she is going to help me to get some pro bono and paid coach clients in helping me for getting my SCC. Now my question here is, I have not coached anyone who is at international level. Everything is at national level till now. And I'm having a call with her tomorrow evening. So when she offers me this opportunity, should I be accepting all, because every culture from every continent is again different. So should I be accepting clients coming from all these continents, or it is better to concentrate on one particular culture and one particular continent at this point of time to understand it is in more better rather than making khichdi of everything?
At a process level, from a cultural perspective, then, I would jump in and answer you and say, yeah, do this, Sandeep. But then there's a part of me which would really hesitate in directly answering that question for you. Because typically in our culture, this is a question that someone would ask, and then, we would give advice. And, without knowing too much of your role, what you have in terms of what you offer as your competencies and what you offer, what your offerings are, I think for you to actually explore with that as to what is it that you can offer and what is it that this engagement is calling for. I think that is what I would look at exploring, because if you look at, even if you look at from a culture perspective, how open are you to actually seeing that, to seeing that, can I experiment, can I explore, can I falter, can I make mistakes, can I learn, would I have permission to do all of that?
See, the thing is, I haven't done it before, so obviously I have no clue. But unless you don't, you don't push yourself into that water, you won't come to know how much hard or how much soft it is. So it's a similar thing for me. I don't know anything of this, so I don't know what to answer her tomorrow when I speak with her. But then I still thought that, okay, since it's a different culture, all this, maybe pro bono is a better option, because neither they lose anything, neither I lose anything, but I get into that connection and count for those 30 hours. So that is how I am looking at it, and get only my worry was if tomorrow she comes up, okay, I will give, because I am already getting one client who is from Canada and another lady client who is from Nigeria. So, the different continents altogether. So tomorrow she may come up and say, I will give you from Europe, somebody maybe from US. I'm totally unaware about what to say tomorrow. I will be hearing, possibly asking some time from her before committing. But since this topic came of culture, I thought I will check with you for that.
And yet, I think you seem to have answered your own question.
No, I don't know. I mean, this is what, see, if whatever I said just now, they're all coming from different continents.
Yeah. No, you seem
I'm yet to commit. I'm yet to commit.
Yeah.
It possibly just gives me some exposure how the things go at international level.
I see you continuing to answer your own question. So all these are possibilities. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but my question was whether concentrate only on one continent only, or be open for all. That particular point, even I'm not getting it at this point.
Yeah. And yet you said, I'm going to test waters. I'm going to see what's the value of looking at,
Yeah, that is what I feel. And as a client, I will say, okay, I'm giving a solution. Yeah. But as a coach, I thought, okay, if I come up with that problem, how you are going to help me to find out that solution for me.
Yeah.
Based on maybe your experience of
Yeah. And that's what I don't think we're doing a coaching session now, Sandeep. So what we'll do is, I think it's lovely that you're meeting the lady for a mentoring or coaching session, or a supervision is what you said. So so then it's you already come to some level of thinking about it. So perhaps you're taking it back there. Yeah,
I'm taking it positively. Whatever happens, that is the way I'm thinking of. Let us see.
All right. Let me wish you all the best for that, Sandeep.
Yeah, thank you.
I would add to that, Sandeep, the fact that you decided to be a coach and are on this journey is also saying something, right?
Yeah.
Yes. See, I'm already a certified coach. I'm a certified career coach from NCDA, but my ACC journey I've started just recently. So I'm now in a stage of doing this pro bono and paid coaching. So I'm getting connected with people who are requiring pro bono and paid coaching and all that. So that's how, since I knew this lady and she has been doing it for past 4 years, we set up a call for tomorrow. And it helped me because I pushed the call to tomorrow because I knew I'm attending this one today, so that I had little preparedness.
So, Sandeep, we are on the hour. We are at 8. So, like I said, this may not substitute for a coaching conversation. In fact, I was thinking it's a perfect question either for a mentor coach or even a TA practitioner to, given what Chitra was talking about, to figure out what are the parental messages around taking these decisions that are relevant for you and how are they influencing you today. So my, all the best to you in figuring this journey out for yourself.
Thank you.
So I'm going to pause